Good morning. The three leaders of South Korea, the United States, and Japan hold the Trilateral Summit in what is the first time the Korean president and Japanese prime minister sit face-to-face since taking office. Appropriately dubbed the center of design, the Dongdaemun Design Plaza caters to the many elements of design. Seoul's ambitious landmark of design opened last week, and Shin has more. The number of single-person households has been on the rise, a change in the structure of the way we live, and new ideas accommodating this change. If you're into fishing, you'll like what we have. Hot fishing items from bamboo poles to automatic reels. Angela Park and Peter Bint has that for you on Korea Today, Wednesday, March 26th, 2014.
From Arirang News, this is Korea Today.
And good morning and welcome to Korea Today. You're joining us live, and I am Young Kim alongside Jin Ju and Kim Min-jung.
Thank you for tuning in. In the wee hours of this morning, North Korea fired two more ballistic missiles into the East Sea that are believed to be mid-range Nodong missiles that flew some 650 kilometers into the East Sea.
Yes, military authorities have strengthened surveillance in the region, and the missile launches come on the very day which marks the fourth anniversary of North Korea's torpedo attack on the South Korean warship Cheonan, which killed 46 South Korean sailors.
That's right.
That's right. You did mention the two rockets that were tested, and these mid-range ballistic missiles were fired around the same time of the meeting between the three leaders of Korea, the United States, and Japan in The Hague. And that is our top story, the highly anticipated Trilateral Summit between the three nations. This is the first time that President Park Geun-hye has sat down for talks with Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe since her inauguration, where the Korean president called on the need for a coordinated response from the three allies against North Korea's nuclear weapons program during the meeting held at the conclusion of the Nuclear Security Summit.
이렇게 그 삼국 정상이 한 자리에 모여서 북핵 문제에 대해서 논의하는 것 자체가 의미가 있다고 생각을 합니다. 북한이 진정성을 바탕으로 해서 비핵화의 길로 나간다면 북한 주민들의 어려움도 해결해 나갈 수 있을 것으로 생각을 합니다.
All three presidents firmly agreed with the Korean president's reiteration that the North Korean nuclear issue was a grave threat to peace and stability in the surrounding regions during the meeting that took place early Wednesday, Korea time. This marks the first time President Park and Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe sat down for talks face-to-face since the two assumed office more than a year ago. Seoul and Tokyo's bilateral relations have been frayed due to historical disputes and have been on shaky ground since the Japanese Prime Minister's visit to the controversial Yasukuni Shrine.
To share with us his insight on this trilateral meeting, we have Professor Shin from the Graduate School of International Studies at Seoul National University joining us this morning. Good morning, Professor.
Good morning.
Thank you for your time. Now, so the leaders of Korea, Japan, and the U.S. have sat down and discussed pretty much North Korea's nuclear program. Now, what's your overall assessment of this trilateral meeting to begin us off?
Yeah, I think first of all, it was a good meeting. It's always good to have a meeting like this between the leaders from very important country. In particular, Korea, Japan is a major economy and democracy in East Asia, and obviously United States, always important country in the region. And for these three leaders to have a meeting and discussion on the common issues, this is always good. And second, as we all know, it's been a long time that the two leaders from Seoul and Tokyo met over almost it's been 2 years that they haven't met yet. So in that sense, this was also a good opportunity for these two leaders to meet. And third, more practically and concretely, they talked about North Korean issue, which is always important agenda for all those countries. So they talk about this common agenda and come up with a kind of united front that is also always a good thing to have.
You mentioned this briefly, but this is a trilateral meeting, but a lot of attention was given to the fact that President Park Geun-hye and Prime Minister Shinzo Abe met for the first time since taking office, and they even shook hands. And President Park had been reluctant to sit down with Prime Minister Abe because of his controversial visit to the Yasukuni Shrine and a series of controversial remarks by Japanese politicians. But do you think this could be a turning point of sorts between Seoul and Tokyo?
I do hope so, definitely, because like I said again, the Korea and Japan is two major economy and also democracy in East Asia, and for them, and they are also neighbors. So there are always many important issues that these two countries need to work together. In that sense, it was quite unfortunate the two leaders couldn't meet over these historical issues. And as we know, again, thanks to recent remark by the Prime Minister Abe saying that they will abide by their previous administration's position, which, by the way, was the basic requirement coming from the President Park Geun-hye.
Right.
So I think the bottom line is the stakes are too high and too much for these two countries to just let the history dictate their bilateral relations agenda, because there are so many issues ranging from economic and trade and cultural and social exchange, of course, and common security issues like North Korea. So there are always a lot to talk about, and they need to cooperate. So for that matter, I think, I hope this could lead to a kind of more normal bilateral relationship between the two countries in the future. But still, we are not, especially from the Korean perspective, it's a little bit too early, because there are some other issues maybe coming out in the coming months. So things could go back very kind of turbulent situation always. So
and
still we have to wait and see.
And Seoul has maintained that much hinges on Japan's sincerity in its words and actions as well. And Japanese Prime Minister has been trying to make overtures, and he even made his greetings in Korean this time when he met with President Park. What's on Japan's agenda?
I think there are many things. Bottom line is, like Prime Minister Abe said, Korea is an important neighbor for Japan. So for them, not being able to shake hands and meet with Korean president, it's not always a good thing. It's a bad thing. And yet at the same time, Japan needs a lot of also cooperation from South Korea. And obviously one thing is that Japan is having also very tough time in dealing with China. So I think there are some other such a geopolitical reason that Japan wants to have good relations with China. And of course, eventually. But in doing so, improving relations with Korea is always an important step. So there are lots of need and things to do with Korea. And of course, always the U.S., Korea, Japan trilateral partnership is also another important agenda for Abe. So there are many reasons for Prime Minister Abe to improve relations with Korea.
Just before you go, maybe just a little bit about the U.S.'s position. It is in the U.S.'s best interest for the key allies in this region, Japan and Korea, to get along, basically, and mend fences between the two countries. So this is why the U.S. really gathered the two leaders together, and it came at the invitation of Washington. So what's in it for the U.S.?
So I think this was definitely a good event from the U.S. perspective. I think especially President Obama, since his Asia Pivot initiative, he says Asia is the center of geopolitics of this century. And in that, the first principle and the key component of this U.S. policy towards Asia is strengthening alliance partnership. And the Korea-Japan is the most important alliance partner for the United States. So to have these two allies having a good relationship is always key for the U.S.-Asia policy. So in that matter, this was a very good also meeting for the United States as well.
A baby step towards mending fences between Seoul and Tokyo, you could say.
Definitely.
Thank you, Professor Shin, for your time this morning.
Thank you.
And on the domestic front, President Park Geun-hye's drive toward deregulation is rolling out with its first move food trucks. Following a request by a food truck manufacturer during a special televised debate last week, the Transport Ministry announced that beginning as early as July, renovating commercial vehicles into food trucks will not be illegal. Food trucks are categorized as special vehicles and must be solely built for that purpose and therefore illegal to modify other types of trucks for the purpose of serving food. The ministry also has plans to ease regulations on other automobile modifications, allowing van conversions for the disabled as well as campers. The lift comes less than a week after the president's pledge to cut the volume of regulations by 20% in the next 2 years.
Starting this year, a new landmark in Seoul has become the venue for Seoul Fashion Week. With the aim to become the fashion and culture mecca of the capital city, Dongdaemun Design Plaza has opened its doors to the public last week. For a closer look into this new multi-purpose complex, we now connect live to our Shin Min. So, Min, the building we see behind you must be the Dongdaemun Design Plaza, right?
That's right, Chinju. The 2014 Fall and Winter Seoul Fashion Week is set to close as of today. And in fact, the event was held at this location, Dongdaemun Design Plaza, for the first time, which is also significant to those who are involved, because each year the event was held at different locations, giving a bit of confusion to those who are in attendance. But starting this year, the event will be annually held at this Dongdaemun Design Plaza. And not only does this plaza hold events such as Fashion Week, it also has museums and exhibition rooms and other cultural spaces that are open to public. And now with that, let's take a look at what this landmark has in store. This is just a peek at the 2014 Fall Winter Seoul Fashion Week currently taking place in the fashion district of Dongdaemun. The event is being held at the newly opened Dongdaemun Design Plaza, which will serve as permanent home for Seoul Fashion Week twice a year from now on. But this is just one of many purposes for the landmark that was built under the slogan of Dream, Design, and Play. Construction on the 85,000 square meter asymmetrical structure began 5 years ago. Over 45,000 aluminum panels make up the exterior, making it look like a spaceship. But it's not all about the future at Dongdaemun Design Plaza. Its actual inspiration comes from Korean traditional houses and the ancient fortress walls. The multi-purpose complex was designed by world-renowned architect Zaha Hadid, who filled the interior with a total of 15 spaces, which include exhibition rooms, a museum, an open courtyard with manicured lawns. From exhibitions that range from Korea's national treasures and futuristic furniture pieces designed by Hadid herself to the conveniences of the modern world, including restaurants and cafes, the landmark has a little something for everyone's needs and taste. Although the Dongdaemun Design Plaza is unquestionably unique, its construction cost has been the subject of criticism. More than $450 million were spent building this landmark, and many are skeptical it'll be able to live up to its steep price tag.
The architecture is very ambitious. The building does add another cultural element to the trendy Dongdaemun district, but the costs of maintenance will be pricey, and taking a first look around, the building looks empty without much content.
Calling it one of Seoul's numerous jewels, Seoul City Mayor Park Won-soon has a vision for what the plaza will become. He said the landmark has a potential to make a profit of 13 trillion won, or over $12 billion, in just 2 decades. The CEO of the Seoul Design Foundation agrees that the building will be a boon for the city and the country.
What used to be Dongdaemun Stadium is now a design plaza. This landmark will pioneer the design sector by incorporating history, culture, and fashion. Not only does this architecture up the standard of design in the region and the country, it contributes to the global design world.
Seoul Fashion Week is the first opportunity the plaza had to show off all it is and all it can become.
I believe that culture plays a key role when the country is looking to develop. And for those who are working in the name of culture like myself, having a whole building designated especially for us to display art I cannot express how much I appreciate the support.
So, Semin, it sure seems that there's a lot to look forward to there. I also hear that parts of the complex operates 24 hours. Is that right?
That's right. Dongdaemun Design Plaza like this, to pace up with the Dongdaemun's fast market, the parts of the plaza like this here, the Dongdaemun marketplace is also running 24 hours. So if you are in the neighborhood doing a little bit of late night shop, this is a spot that you might want to take a look at. Shinju?
All right, well, expectations are very high, but we do hope that the city will come up with ways to more efficiently tackle high maintenance costs and fill up the complex with meaningful content. Thank you for that report, Semin. That was our Shin Semin reporting live from Dongdaemun Design Plaza.
Good morning. Let's run through the front pages of your newspapers. And you heard earlier in the show as well in the headlines, but many of the stories, the top stories, in fact, on the papers this morning are about the trilateral meeting between Korea, the U.S. and Japan, which just came to a close several hours ago in The Hague, Netherlands. So let's begin with that story here on 동아일보. And the headline reads, Korea, U.S., Japan, they create practical measures to abolish North Korea's nuclear weapons. Now, the Korean President Park Geun-hye and U.S. President Barack Obama, Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe held a meeting after the conclusion of the Nuclear Security Summit. And in fact, the U.S. brought together Korea and Japan, making it possible for the two sides' first formal encounter since they took office more than a year ago. And then the topics at the meeting were limited to the North Korean nuclear standoff and nuclear non-proliferation, not including historical or other bilateral matters. So the meeting was constructed just around North Korea and the firm need for the three nations to coordinate their response to Pyongyang's nuclear weapons program. So the three countries saw eye to eye that it is impossible for North Korea to exploit its nuclear developments alongside its pursuit of an economic development, and a policy change is essential for the North. And let's go to 조선일보 now for a look at its top story. It's in a similar boat here regarding this, the trilateral meeting, and the headline says, wobbly Korea, U.S. and Japan relations now unite hands regarding nuclear North Korea. So the three countries sat together to reaffirm their trilateral coordination to strengthen cooperation on the nuclear front. And the paper added that it can be interpreted that the nations will maintain their basic approach to keep pressure on the North. And let's switch gears to a different story here. Some local news on Gyeongyang Shinmun regarding Choi Dong-wook, the former prosecutor general. And the headline says, 청와대 officials who requested secret investigation on Choi Dong-wook to walk. Now, for those of you who are unfamiliar with the issue, this case first began when a local newspaper raised suspicions last September that the former top prosecutor had fathered a son through an extramarital affair. And Choi eventually stepped down from his position, although he flatly denied the report. Now, the sub-headlines, they say that the prosecution is investigating the case with consideration to only punish those at the presidential office who illegally accessed the personal information of the child and provided or leaked it, and not those who simply requested for the information. And with this, the paper also says there are concerns and criticism that the investigation is being reduced to cut some slack off of the government. And let's finally go to some business news on the Korea Economic Daily. And the headline reads, half of outsourced service reports to the government, they go to waste. And the article starts out by giving an example of such a case. The Ministry of Security and Public Administration asked the Korea Insurance Development Institute to turn in service reports regarding a study on improving ways to vitalize bicycle insurance here in the country in the beginning of last year. However, even when a final report was turned in to the ministry, the report was not reflected on the actual policy regarding the service. And in the end, the ministry had practically wasted 30 million won won, or about 28,000 US dollars in expenses. So as the paper implies, it's a shame that pretty much half of these reports going to the government are being discarded without careful consideration or real implementation. And that was a look at your newspaper headlines for this Wednesday. And coming up are the stock numbers from Tuesday.
Let's now get a check on the weather. It's getting toastier and toastier as the days move on.
What happened to spring?
We skipped it.
Right. We're going to get pre-summer temperatures in parts of the peninsula. We'll now go to Chun Song-cho for a look at today's weather, what we can expect.
Good morning, Song-cho.
Good morning, everyone. Should I wear this jacket or not? That would be the question that you're going to ask yourself every morning for the rest of this week. The current temperature in Seoul, 13 degrees Celsius, tells me that you should. However, the midday highs is expecting to rise up above 20 degrees Celsius. We're used to seeing this sort of number way later in the spring, like early May. However, due to the influence of a warm front that's affecting the entire nation, it's going to be much like pre-summer weather for the rest of this week. So again, with or without this jacket, my advice to you is that you should bring your jacket with you for the time being to go outside for the rest of this week because temperature gaps between day and night will widen as we go further into this week. So now let's go ahead and take a look at the temperatures around the peninsula. Mostly cloudy weather is expected nationwide, with Chungcheong provinces and the southern region receiving a few spells of rain up until the afternoon. Seoul's highs are the warmest at 21 and Gwangju the coolest at 16 degrees Celsius. Starting tonight, skies will clear out throughout the country after the rainfall, so you can look forward to seeing plenty of sunshine and warmer conditions tomorrow. That's all I have for the weather forecast. Back to you, Minjung, in the studio.
Thank you, Song-cho. We'll kick off our look at international news headlines with an update on the situation in Ukraine this morning. For that, we'll turn to our Eunice Kim, who is standing by at the news center. Good morning, Eunice. It seems like the war of wits of sorts between Russia and the West is very much in progress. And U.S. President Barack Obama referred to Russia as a regional power yesterday. Ouch.
That's right. Good morning, Min-jung. Something of a indirect diplomatic diss, if you will, especially when you consider Russian President Vladimir Putin has made it his mission to project Moscow as a strong player on the international stage. Russia, of course, very much at the center of this East-West tension, given its annexation of Ukraine's Crimea last week. In The Hague Tuesday, U.S. President Barack Obama put on display his growing rift with Russia by saying that Russia, a regional power, is threatening its immediate neighbors not out of strength but out of weakness. Meanwhile, CNN is reporting that Russia has boosted its military presence along its border with Ukraine by another 10,000 troops, citing a U.S. official. And previous to that, NATO chief Anders Fogh Rasmussen did come out to say he was very much concerned about that military buildup and that NATO has plans in place to defend its allies. Meanwhile, in Ukraine, ultra-nationalist leader Oleksandr Mushiko, who played a role in recent anti-government protests, was reported to have died during a police raid to arrest him. His group, Right Sector, has promised revenge.
So more tensions on the horizon there. Now, let's turn to the mass trial in Egypt, where a court has handed death sentences to more than 500 defendants, and the second round of court hearings yesterday considered the fates of even more people.
Indeed, 682 defendants stood trial in this second round of hearings, though only 62 were present for it at Minya Criminal Court. Among them is the spiritual leader of the now outlawed Muslim Brotherhood, Mohammed Badi, who also was not present due to security concerns. The group is standing trial on charges related to violent riots in August, triggered by a deadly crackdown on supporters of ousted President Mohamed Morsi, and many are seeing this as a crackdown on pro-Morsi forces as well. There were also no defense lawyers present Tuesday as they boycotted the proceedings they deemed unfair, and they weren't alone. Foreign governments and rights groups agreed, and the United Nations condemned the mass trials as breaching international law.
600 death sentences. Woof. Now, shifting gears, a UN report just released shows that air pollution may be a bigger threat than we lead ourselves to believe.
Right, this is pretty surprising, and the report comes from the World Health Organization, which dubbed air pollution as the single biggest environmental health risk. And here comes some figures. It linked indoor and outdoor pollution to some 7 million deaths annually, or 1 in 8 deaths in 2012, which is double the amount noted in previous estimates, actually more than double. And this is because scientists now know more about the impact of air pollutants and can confidently link those pollutants to conditions outside of respiratory diseases, which we already knew about, such as heart disease and cancers. And to put some perspective to this 7 million figure, Minjung, that's more than deaths connected to traffic accidents, diabetes, and smoking combined.
Wow, concerning indeed. And now, did the report mention anything, any particular region more prone to this risk?
Well, the WHO said the vast majority were found in Asia, specifically Southeast Asia, which recorded 3.3 million deaths linked to indoor air pollution and 2.6 million related to outdoor air pollution. And we can consider the side effects of explosive growth in cities there as some culprits, as well as industrial development in China and India. And of course, deep poverty in rural areas. Many households there are still using leaky coal and wood cook stoves with poor ventilation.
All right, well, thank you, Eunice. We'll leave that story there. And still to come on Korea today, in about 15 years, 1 out of every 3 households will be a person living alone. The number of people living on their own is quickly rising. We take a look at everything there is to know about this growing trend on Korea Top 5.
And that's coming up later on our program. And it's a story about a legendary heroine who helped establish 2 of the ancient kingdoms of Korea. And it's brought to the musical stage. And Im Yoon-hee joins us with more on that. Good morning.
Good morning, Young. So this performance is brought to us by the Seoul Performing Arts Company. And they have quite a reputation for some creative works. Now, this performance is about the character Sosono, who's said to be the first queen of the Goguryeo kingdom. That's one of the 3 ancient kingdoms of Korea. And so this documents about Sosono have been lost over time, but many people have created renditions of her story, including this musical. So with that said, let's take a look at one of Korea's most legendary heroines. It's a story of friendship, love, and war. Since the days when tribes fought against each other for territory on the Korean peninsula, the story of Sosono has trickled down through the years. Known as the mother of the crown prince of Goguryeo, Sosono's tale has been told on many different accounts. But here she's the loving partner of Jumong. Sosono and Jumong meet in their youth while training, preparing to fight for their kingdoms. And instead, a friendship bloomed, one that will later turn into a story of love and support, as Jumong and Sosono become the leaders of Goguryeo.
There's not a single written piece of evidence of Sosono from Goguryeo. In fact, the only few sentences that exist are from Baekje, and we've based everything on those few lines. If it's only based on history, all of the stories sound the same, so we've created something new. For example, the white funeral procession flags behind me are usually all white, but we placed a black shroud around it to show a different side to the procession and to the entire story.
The Seoul Performing Arts Company isn't new to the art of recreating the historical. Since 1986, they've been producing one-of-a-kind creative works for the stages, both in Korea and around the world. Though it's classified as a musical, their newest production, Sosono, is filled with a never-ending wave of action scenes. The actors fly through the air, sword in hand, as they fight for Koguryo. And there's not a single dull moment throughout the entire performance as the dramatic story of Chumong and his journey to the throne unfolds.
Act 2 opens with a war scene where you'll see Chumong's ambitions contrast with Sosono, a motherly spirit. Chumong conjures strength from the ground as he advances forward with his soldiers, whereas Sosono stands from above and leads them with her spirit. Even though no blood is shed in the fights, you can see all the emotions throughout body expressions.
It's a story that took place thousands of years ago, and now it's being brought back to life on the stage. But just what happens when there are two people and just one spot for the leader? That's where Sosono and Chumong's son, Yuri, enters the story, and it's up to him to rule the kingdoms. The mystery of Sosono and her exact role centuries ago may never be known, but it's a story of Korea and its people's history, colored by the imagination.
Now, it definitely fits into the large-scale category, and the theatrics incredible, as well as the action scenes. It's action-packed.
It is, So it's funny you say that because the director actually wanted, or she told me that she's excited for this program because she thinks it's going to be very exciting for the male audience because there's so many action scenes thrown in there.
Okay, well, I'm glad that you brought it today on a Wednesday because it's only playing until the end of this week.
Exactly. Unfortunately, it's only going to be here through this week. They are moving down to Chungcheongnam-do province, and the Seoul Performing Arts Company does really make it a point to share their creative works with other audiences. In fact, they've been around the world to share their performances, so they really have contributed to Korea's art culture.
Okay, so catch it while you can here in the capital, and then next week it's off to another place. Thank you very much, Uni, for this.
My pleasure.
All right.
Now it's time for a news sum up to take a look at some of the hottest issues of the day on the internet.
That's right. First up, we will take a look at some of the keywords that were trending at around 2 o'clock in the afternoon. A teaser to Park Hyo-shin's new song Wildflower topped the list, and a new movie by actor Yoo Seung-young titled The Target, and also former Prosecutor General Choi Dong-wook, who was involved in an infidelity scandal, is back in the headlines. Let's talk about the most searched issue, the teaser for Park Hyo-shin's new song Wildflower. This 30-second long video was made available on YouTube. It shows the singer preparing for the release of his 7th studio album. While the video barely exposes the music or even the singer himself, it's been attracting a lot of buzz for having captured the singer's emotions and having left fans wanting for more.
Now, Park Hyo-shin is one of the most talented vocalists in the country, but many fans were quite surprised when it was recently revealed that he had gone bankrupt and has been struggling to be back on his feet. So it seems that this new song titled Wildflower shows his determination to stand strong and reach the top once again.
That's right, an unwithering flower. Well, the album will be streamed at online streaming sites starting at noon this coming Friday, that's March 28th.
Yes, and let's look at the keywords that were searched the most at around 5 p.m. Lee Sunhee's 15th album topped the list, and as Min-jung mentioned, actor Yoo Seung-young's new film, The Target, came in next. And we also have Song So-hee promoting Korean beef, and lastly, World Map made with food. We're seeing more entertainment news at 5. Actor Ryu Seung-ryong and his new film, The Target, kept his second place from 2 o'clock. This is because the film just held its production report yesterday. Ryu, who has rose to stardom through his roles in films like Masquerade and Miracle in Cell Number 7, plays the part in this film of a man who gets entangled in a homicide case.
That's right. And at the production report, Ryu drew much attention when he revealed that he had gone through a rigorous diet and exercise for some 140 days for the role and managed to get a six-pack for the first time in his life. We're looking forward to that, right?
He's in his 40s, right? So he also promised to take the audience to a theme park if the film reaches 3 million viewers. Now, The Target will hit the theaters on April 30th, so do check it out if you want to go on a roller coaster ride with him one day.
Sure, why not, right?
Yes.
Lastly, let's take a look at the hot topics of last night. A great piece of news for little kids out there. Tayo, the little bus, goes into service starting tomorrow, and Korea's legendary singer Lee Sun-hee celebrates the 30th anniversary of her debut. 4-minute releases their choreography video, and here's a story that children and some doting parents would be happy to hear. Marking the Public Transportation Day today, the Seoul Metropolitan Government announced that it will have 4 city buses painted as characters of the popular animation series Tayo the Little Bus. Tayo, 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 Tayo.
You know the song.
Young knows the song as well. All parents know the song.
Well, 1 bus each on lines 370 to 16, 2211, and 9401 will run for a month, painted as the 4 characters Tayo, Rogi, Rani, and Kani.
I'm surprised that you know the characters as well.
Now, before they go into full service, the buses will first undergo a special event.
That's right, and they will have a ceremony in front of the Seoul City Hall around at 8:30 in the morning before heading over to the Seoul Metropolitan Children's Hospital in Sochogu District. And their children will be invited not only to ride the buses, but to take pictures with them and receive some gifts as well.
Yeah, they'll get excited.
The kids adore
Yes,
Tayo.
they'll love it. Perhaps you can remember the bus lines and ride them with your kids to make some of these great memories. I think it'll be a good experience out there.
Right. What were the numbers again?
I'll have to go back.
Right. All right, well, next up is a look at the college basketball here in Korea, so do stay with us.
And college basketball, it is in the United States. March Madness is rocking the nation. Fans are focused on the huge college basketball tournament. But here in the nation, the popularity of college basketball has declined a little bit. And to find out a bit more, we'll find out through SJ Lee. He joins us this morning. Good morning, SJ.
Good morning.
Good morning, guys. Now, of course, just like you said, right now, currently in the United States, the biggest sporting event that's actually taking place is, of course, March Madness College Basketball Tournament. And when I was going to school back in my university days, not too long ago, it was a huge college basketball city. But here in Korea, fans actually remember when it was like that as well before the decline. Now, many basketball fans in Korea will agree when I say that there was a huge boom in college basketball from 1993 to 1995. And the reason for that is there was no KBL or professional basketball league. Instead, college basketball teams and amateur teams combined to play against each other. But what really got the fans to come out was the fascination for this one guy in the NBA. You guys might know him, Michael Jordan.
Who's that?
And of course, a comic book that everyone was reading at the time titled Slam Dunk. So while we see packed baseball stadium nowadays, back then it was actually college basketball.
I remember the days when we used to go crazy over Ujiwon and Sojamwon. Gone are those days, right? But the new season for college basketball tipped off on Monday.
Right.
But fans are still coming out, right?
Right now, they are trying to promote college basketball a lot more. And in fact, when schools like Korea University, Kyunghee University, and Yonsei University do play, they do get a certain number of fans that come out. But of course, unlike the United States and the NCAA basketball, only a number of schools are known for basketball. And when those 3 schools play against each other, you are going to see more and more fans come out. And of course, before the KBL season starts, you have the Pro Amateur Tournament where the KBL, university, and military teams play each other, which has led to a slight increase in the popularity of college basketball.
So, SJ, will college basketball be able to see the popularity we saw back in
now
the 90s?
Now that's the million-dollar question, right?
Another prediction, or?
Another prediction? Well, here's the thing. It's going to be tough because, like I said, now that we have a professional basketball league here in KBL, fans will rather go out and watch the professionals play. But of course, one of the biggest drawback is that, there's not that much college basketball teams. But of course, we can hope that there'll be more and more basketball teams. But to be honest with you, it is a given considering the fact that the number of schools in the United States compared to the Korea. But at the same time, kids these days want to play football or baseball, and you see less and less kids playing basketball. So no surprise that some schools don't have basketball teams here in the nation. But do encourage everyone to go out there and watch, I guess, college basketball because it is more intense and it is more exciting. The cheering is actually a lot more exciting, especially when you have, I'll do this one for you, Minjung, the Korea University.
Oh, dare you say it the other way.
I'll say it in that order.
Thank
if you have matchups like that, it is very exciting. So do check it out.
Thanks, SJ.
Always a pleasure.
Thanks a lot. And still ahead on Korea Today, if you're into fishing, then you might be on the lookout for this. This is a fishing boat right there, and you can fit it in a little trunk. Waters are warming up and big fish are getting hungry. Spring is the best time to enjoy fishing. Next on Hot Items, we take a look at some fishing gear that'll help every angler experience the thrill of the catch and nab that lunker. All right, it's time for Korea Top 5. We're going to be looking at a subject that is rather interesting. We've been seeing the increase in single-person households. And joining us to talk more about this is Dr. Kim Byung-ju. Good morning.
Good morning. Didn't really have time to sit myself here, but anyway, the rise of singletons, that's what we're talking about today because that's a very often talked about expression in Korea these days. And let's talk about that. Singletons, of course, one-person household we're talking about.
Living alone, bachelors, bachelorettes.
Right, exactly. And the fast rise of this is a big issue, not only here in Korea, but worldwide. And we have some numbers prepared. Let's take a look at it and where Korea stands in terms of this phenomena here. As you can see on the screen here, I'm still short on my breath here, but the Korea, where we stand is about 1 out of 4 household is single-person household, as compared to France, for instance, 1 out of 3, and Sweden is about half. Now we have already moved to the next chart where you have to see about, like, at this point we're standing, as I said, 1 out of 4 household is single-person household, but the projection is by year 2020, it will be 1 out of 3. So this is a very fast rise we are talking about.
Right, it's quite a significant change in the family structures since maybe the baby boom era.
Absolutely, absolutely. And one of the key reasons is because of the female population that are getting very highly educated and have high level of income source and so on, becoming more independent, as well as also breakup of a nuclear family. The children moving out of the household, becoming independent from their parents, and those are basically driving the overall trend here.
Okay, and there's the industry is accommodating this structure as well and accommodating the changes. And what kind of an impact does this have on the whole international or the domestic market economy?
Right. Indeed, that is a key question that the business community is talking about these days. And the one point we can start with is the consumer product market. We have interesting visuals prepared to show our viewers here about what's happening in the consumer products market. For instance, this is a large size retail store, as we are all familiar with. And they have actually separate segment and section for single life. Right, exactly. So in those segments, take a look at those small rice cookers, for instance, for 1 person or 2 people.
How interesting. Oh, look at that. Iron.
Do we need a smaller iron for one
Single
person?
people.
Why not, right?
So that's an interesting one. Toaster and all that kind of stuff. And those are large-scale stores. But convenience stores, take a look at all these different kind of packages for the products that are fit for 1-person consumption. And those are major innovations that we are looking at here in the consumer products market, those kind of doshirak, lunch, and all that kind of stuff. And more increasingly, we are seeing like different kind of packages here. So that's what's happening.
And I heard that even eggs come in single
right,
packages
that's a good
as well.
point. Right,
That's
right.
so interesting.
Exactly.
So one sunny side up.
Right, exactly. One sunny side up. And also not only the consumer product market, but also service sectors. Big changes happening here. And one thing that we can start with is, maybe you will be surprised, one person, 노래방. In Korea, we call it norebang. In Japanese, we call it karaoke. And
Doesn't
we
that
have
defeat the whole purpose?
You're supposed to party together and sing
But
together.
if you don't have your friends to go along or families, if you want to go there, you got to go. So let's take a look at the visuals that we have prepared.
Maybe if you're practicing for a reality program or something, right?
Let's take a look at this. I won't believe it until I see it.
Right. Actually, these norebangs have a one-person room. Feels like a one-person studio in a way. And you sit there, feels like you're recording your own song as an artist here.
Let's see this room.
Basically, that's what's happening. And see, the person is going into that room. And as you can see,
it's a tiny room, too.
Right, right. And the interesting is it's a lot quieter. And you can actually record your song on your USB and then take it home.
Okay.
So the whole concept is kind of sort of like a movie, the music production in a way. And that's how it's done. So check it out. When you feel like go to 노래방 without your friends,
by myself,
and you're not so proud of your singing ability, you can check that out.
That's me, right? If you're embarrassed of your singing skills, then I guess that could be an idea.
That's
for
where
you,
we can go practice for the 회식.
That's right.
Right, exactly.
The next thing where maybe on the horizon could be like people eating alone.
Right, exactly. This is a very interesting one indeed.
There is something like that?
Yeah, indeed. Not eating alone, only that. We have actually in other news programs, we have covered this kind of services for those people who are eating alone. But those people who have to eat alone because they're alone, but they hate to be alone, there's an innovation. Let's take a look at it. It's called the social dining.
Social dining.
Right, and it's a whole bunch of people coming together. Actually, these are strangers, by the way.
What?
And the rule is you're supposed to bring more than one person serving, like a two-person or a larger serving to this place, as you can see on the screen. And they get together and they share their food and talk about each other's food. And I find it very interesting that actually these people are indeed strangers rather than you're like.
They look like best buddies.
They break bread with people that they've met for the first time and they share food with them.
Right, exactly. So this is what's happening. And the second one on this is like sort of like a cooking class.
Okay.
People come and try to practice their own cooking. And these are, once again, kind of all strangers. And they're getting together and talk about their cooking skills and different know-hows and different kind of innovations and different things you can try. And making friends at the same time. So this is the whole point about the single person economy. And how they do it is they usually use the online service. They put together a group by posting some kind of announcement, and people will sign up and they'll come together as a group. And they're saying actually we have as many as 400 of such groups already existing in Korea.
400? Wow,
so
that's
you can
a
join
big
one
figure.
of those.
Well, maybe.
Even though you're married.
Forget about social commerce. You have a lot of people coming together who have common interests. I think that kind of makes it interesting. They have common interests. They come together to meet each other for the first time, make new friends, and do what they do together.
Exactly, actually.
So all these
That's the
accommodations, as well as these the appliances that come out, seems like the economy as well as the world is really gearing up towards this new trend.
Right, exactly. Getting used to the overall innovation here. Of course, there are a lot of things that we have to prepare ourselves for, such as a fast rising trend of the poverty of the older generation. For instance, living alone. They're saying about like a 3/4 of those Koreans who are living alone over the age of 65 are in a poverty level. And so that's a big concern in the short term. And the medium term, I think the individual happiness when you're alone, there should be more public service available to make sure that people don't get into depressions and all that kind of stuff.
I think those single people are happy of just getting together.
At least those ones that we took a look at
Exactly,
it, right?
exactly.
And in the long run, of course, the demographics is a problem. Having babies, how do you do that? That's a big question.
We'll have to see how the story unfolds from there. Dr. Kim, thank you so much for this today.
Thank you.
And time now for hot items. If you like fishing, this one's for you. We're going to look at some fishing equipment with Angela Park and Peter Bint.
And there
Good
they
morning,
are.
guys.
Good morning.
Good morning. We are indeed taking a look at fishing gear. We can't really hide that, right? But the weather is getting warmer, so thus, this is a great season to go fishing. Now, Peter, actually, I should ask you first.
Yeah.
Do you fish?
I do fish.
Do
I
you?
do a lot, as you can tell by my stance and my holding of the rod here.
Yeah, you look like you have no idea what you're doing.
No, I did when I was younger. But yeah, as the weather's getting warmer, apparently all the fishing spots around the country are teeming with anglers at the moment.
So this is a hot item segment for the reported 7 million anglers in the country. We have some innovative fishing gear, starting with the one that I'm actually standing right in front of. So I'm going to move over a little bit to the side here. But it's kind of big and bulky, right? Taking a majority of the space, and that's because this is a boat, a Venezia boat by Club Marina.
Wow, but I know for a fact that the law states any motorized boats are not allowed on reservoirs and lakes in Korea. So is this for rivers?
Right. So this is for freshwater inland fishing, inland water fishing. Now, the key, you bring up a good point, Peter, is that it's not run by a motor, it's by pedaling. I'm going to actually ask you to try to get on there in just a bit.
It can support my weight.
It can support your weight. But the key is it goes at 7 to 8 kilometers, so it is pretty fast.
But there are already kayaks and rubber rafts and things like that. What sets this apart? I will get on it and
so let me
explain.
explain. The thing that sets it apart is, first of all, it's cheaper. Most of these leisure activities, they cost anywhere from $1,800 to $2,800 US. And also the chains require maintenance, but this uses bevel gears, thus less maintenance and convenience. Peter, you look amazed. Oh, that controls the direction.
Oh,
you kind of see in the back how on the bottom there that helps you to steer.
That's unbelievable. Well,
Right.
it looks nice, it feels good, but how on earth are you going to transport this in your car?
Well, believe it or not, it fits into a carrier, and actually it's very convenient. It only weighs about less than 30 kilos or kilograms. So, and you can set up in 15 minutes.
That sounds great. So you can
All right.
transport it around and chuck it in the car, perhaps in the boot or something like that. Well, the product I've got, once you've, if boats are not your fancy, you want to fish from the shore, this swivel chair.
Okay,
Here,
let me move to the side here.
Oh, dear.
We're kind of working in a tighter space today, so.
This is the Ugyeong swivel chair, and it swivels basically 360 degrees. I don't know if wow, yes, I can go 360.
And that's important because?
Because as you see here, many anglers, they don't just use one rod, it's multiple rods.
Spaced all around
so it
them,
increases
right?
your chances of catching something. So you need to scan the whole water surface for all the float. So it is very important.
And it's portable.
Absolutely. This chair, I'm not going to show you now, but it does fold into a very easy to carry size. And also these legs down at the bottom, you can change the heights individually. So you can sit on
because you're
any
often on an incline.
And because Korean people often like to sit on the floor, you can also fold them totally and just put it on the floor. So
There we go. So we have our chair, we have our boat. Now we need rods, right? Peter, have you heard of a bamboo fishing rod?
No, but I'm looking at one right now.
Yes,
And I don't
we have
believe
one
this
right
is not
here.
an antique.
No, it's beautiful looking though. It's 100% handcrafted. And the key is that experienced fishers, of course, in comparison to the carbon fiber rods, it has like more elasticity. So the feel when the fish is tugging at it, it gives you more of like a connection.
A natural feel.
A natural feel,
so it's
right.
different to the carbon ones. Right?
Yeah, so it uses thin bamboos. They cut it into the length, scrape out the inside, plate it. Now, the key engineering factor here is that a lot of these bamboo rods, they tend to break, especially at the thinnest point at the end over here, right? But the key here is they designed it into a hexagonal shape. It distributes the density a little bit better. It provides higher elasticity to catch even bigger fish without ending up with an embarrassed broken bamboo fishing rod.
Oh, that's amazing. So we've got the rod and we've got the chair.
Yep.
We need the reel.
Okay,
I'm gonna show you
reel.
a fantastic reel over here. It's a little bit bigger than your usual one. You can do it by hand.
All right.
But what is great about this is it's the first one-button reel that has been made in Korea. So if you're feeling lazy, all you need to do is push this one button, one red button here. You can see.
That's perfect for novice fishers or maybe weaker.
Or if you've
people.
run out of energy, you've been fishing for the whole day, this will reel in the fish for you, and it detects the load weight, so it uses the right power and speed to bring in the fish without breaking the line.
It's almost like a smart reel, right?
Exactly, yeah.
So hopefully this will encourage some people, novice fishers and experienced fishers, to pick the right product for their hobby.
Yeah, and catch a big fish.
Yes.
You know, that reel, it looks like cheating to me.
It is kind of cheating. But you can push the button
you
and
want it,
pretend
don't
you're
lie.
I don't
Pretend. I like the boat though.
I get my
Right?
fish the old way. I net
The
it
bamboo rod, maybe?
with spears. And
We'll do some shopping after the show.
Thank you, guys.
All right, well, that's just about does it for this edition of Korea Today.
All right, enjoy the rest of your day, and we'll see you back here tomorrow morning at 7.
Thank you for watching. We'll see you tomorrow.